Hello and welcome to this episode of the Be Free podcast. I was about to say Be Free Book Club because that's what I was thinking about in my mind before I came to record this episode. So I've kind of been procrastinating on this episode. I was requested to record a podcast on health anxiety. Now, used to experience incredibly bad health anxiety, and if you've read my book, Be Free, you will have heard me speak about this. I've worked with a lot of clients over the years who've experienced health anxiety. And then during perimenopause, my health anxiety came back. Now, again, I managed to recover, move on from that. However, the past probably 6 weeks, maybe, I have been experiencing health anxiety again, and I was procrastinating recording this podcast for you because I am in the thick of it myself, and I generally like to teach from a space, having come through the other side. However, I decided just to go for it and share what tools I'm using to support myself right now and the tools I've used in the past, and know that there is hope. I do want to caveat this whole episode with if you do have any health concerns, please do not just dismiss it as health anxiety. Go and seek professional help, whether that be through your GP or a nurse or whoever you go to for your health care. I am not a doctor. I am not a medical professional. I am a meditation and mindfulness teacher and trainer and someone who's experienced a lot of anxiety in my life and a coach. So let's begin this podcast because we are all about supporting ourselves mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, all through holistic tools and in this podcast. So thank you to the person that requested this podcast. You may have experienced health anxiety, or maybe you have a friend or loved one who has health anxiety, and maybe they're Google searching symptoms and being reactive to any feeling in their body, any sensation that they're having. Maybe they're getting upset by things. And what I would say is the majority of people I have worked with through coaching, anxiety coaching, are really kind, sensitive, empathetic people. So we generally feel a lot. And that can be such a blessing, but at other times it can be such a curse in that things that other people may not notice or identify, we feel. Um, some of that is just, as I said, through being kind of empathetic and open, and some of that is through being hyper vigilant and stuck in this stress response. And I'm going to touch into some of that in this podcast today. Um, but I want you to know that you're not alone. If you are thinking about your health, if you're spiraling about your health, um, you're not alone. And in fact, on a Facebook group today, I read my husband a post from a Facebook group and he was like, "Did you post that?" And I'm like, "No, this is somebody else." He's like, "That is like literally sounds like what you're saying to me." And so I know that I'm not alone um, in worrying about my health. And yeah, I want you to know that you're not alone. And I want to share some things that have helped me. Now, months ago, as I said, I was going to be recording this podcast ages ago. And I found this book. If you're on YouTube, you can see me holding up the book. If you are on listening, obviously you can't. Anyway, I discovered this book, and it was a book that I was using before I started HRT. I was experiencing health anxiety and depression again. And I chose to go and study with a guy called Charles Linden. And he has something called the Linden method. And this was my notes from going through Charles's program to support myself. I joined that program because I was experiencing panic attacks every day. And I wanted to see if he had any other tools that I hadn't, hadn't thought of, hadn't tried, whatever. And I'm just going to read you some bits and pieces from here, and hopefully, it might help you. Fear is false evidence appearing real. So you've maybe heard that before. Um, and I can't read part of my writing here, but panic attacks are like a pressure cooker. Okay, so the adrenaline builds. So this was his description. So if you are experiencing panic attacks, know that it's like the stress and everything is building, building, building to the adrenaline in your body until you're like, and it comes out not in the right way. So this is why things like I am constantly going on about having a consistent meditation and mindfulness practice or a yoga practice, something that is going to help you empty that pressure cooker regularly, preferably every day, so that the accumulation of stress doesn't get to build up. Um, One of the things he said, which I think is quite interesting, and I'll touch on as well, that health anxiety is actually a form of OCD, and but we're just focusing on inappropriate things, and that actually makes quite a lot of sense to me because when we are constantly checking, seeking, it's a form of control. And OCD and obsessive compulsive thoughts are a form of control. So maybe, and take what you will from this podcast. This is mostly my personal experience, but if your life, you feel like your life is spiraling in other areas where you don't have control, maybe this is your way of, yeah, trying, it seems crazy, doesn't it? That we're like trying to control things by actually like, giving ourselves more fear. But um yeah, it's more than health anxiety is more than just being health conscious. It really is this hyperfixation, as he said there, that kind of OCD focus on inappropriate thoughts, where it becomes excessive and persistent and distressing. And, that's where I have been the past couple of weeks where I have been to the doctor for tests and the pharmacist, and I've been Googling and I've been online and I'm trying to figure it out. And, as I sat at my altar earlier today, I was just, guided, just surrender. Just surrender, Susie. Just allow, just allow. Once you rule out the things, just maybe just surrender. Now, surrender is one of the hardest things I would say for us to learn as human beings. And I am, quite frankly, even though I'm a meditation mindfulness teacher and trainer, absolutely shite at surrendering. I love to find solutions, to constantly seek. I spent my weekend going to the library this weekend, reading up on um, some of the health stuff that the doctor has said that I do have. Um, you know, in order to avoid kind of mainstream medicine, I've just kind of been researching the holistic side of things, the other tools I can use, what foods can I eat to support myself, all that kind of thing, which again is probably obsessive. Um, but that's where I am at on my journey just now. So yeah, I've made some notes, so I don't want to kind of miss anything out. So yeah, here's something I've written down now. So yeah, obsessively kind of researching symptoms online is quite typical of health anxiety. And then I've also put like, or even avoiding medical stuff altogether because it triggers panic. And I have a Fitbit on just now, and I actually switched my heart monitor off of my Fitbit. This was like when about 3, 4 years ago, when my health anxiety and depression and anxiety were really bad before I started HRT. And I ended up selling my Fitbit at one point, and then I was like, you know what? I want to track my steps. I want to track this. I actually found it quite helpful. Got another one, but then I had to switch the heart monitor off because it was just stressing me out. Um, so much and checking it and panicking about it. And I just thought, you were none the wiser before and you were super healthy and active. So like this is actually not supporting you and I still haven't switched it on to this day. So yeah, we can become hyper focused on the physical sensations and just kind of really interpreting um, signs as something dangerous. So we can either like be totally obsessive and searching, or like avoiding it because of the fear, that or we can attach to certain things. So, the doctor said to me certain things, if this happens, this could mean this. And then, the pharmacist said something to me today, if this happens, you need to do this. And, these are the thoughts that get stuck in your head. Go round and round and round, like, oh my God, is this happening? Is this happening? So we need to really begin to break this patterns and cycles. Um, what I would say is, why does health anxiety happen? A whole host of different reasons. Um, as I mentioned, it can be a form of control. It can be based on past experiences. So maybe you've had a family member or you've experienced something in the past where your health has been compromised, or a friend, a loved one, or you've seen something and it's just kind of planted this seed um, that can do that. Information overload, absolutely. Oh my gosh, like you only have to, yeah, Google search, join a forum, and this is what I've said for anybody who suffers with anxiety, actually, to stay out of these kind of forums and Facebook groups. And Charles Linden's approach is exactly the same. You want to be fueling your mind with success stories. We want to really be rewiring our mind for overcoming things. Stress and control. I've said here health anxiety stems from a need to control, spoken about that. Just when life feels really unpredictable, we can try and, yeah, fixate on other things. Um, and yeah, the brain body feedback loop. So our body, say your heart is beating because you're anxious. Okay, but then that might make you dizzy, and then you become dizzy, and then you wonder something is wrong because you're dizzy. And you can get stuck in this cycle of fear and focus, fear and focus, and fear and focus. And then what happens then is we're training the brain to look for symptoms, right? Now, again, Charles Linden said in his training, what we'd experience is sensations, not symptoms. Okay, so symptoms and sensations, how you look at it, but yeah, we need to kind of um not get so hyper fixated on those things. And I'm going to share some tools that I have used to support me in overcoming that. So we really need to learn to shift from this fear, fight, flight response into our rest or digest. And this is, this is what I teach for a living. And I teach my students to support their clients with things. And I had this little epiphany a couple of days ago that the doctor, when I was at the doctor last week, they suggested starting SSRIs, which is a type of like antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication. And I said no. And then they called me after some other results and said the same again. And I've said no. Now, not because I think that there's anything wrong with antidepressants. I absolutely feel that there is a need for antidepressants. And, if somebody has gone through something mega traumatic, in order for them to maintain a quality of life, having that tool to support them till they get to a point to look at other tools is incredible. I don't feel like it's what I need at this moment. I feel that there's other things that I can be doing. But my epiphany was, back round to that, was that every time I have been offered antidepressants, and I have been getting offered antidepressants since I've been 15 years old, and I am now 46. And, I don't know how many times doctors have suggested that for me. And, I think I have shared on here once I have taken them once, one tablet, and I had the biggest panic attack ever. It was horrific. But um, my life has changed for the better. So every time I've been offered them and I haven't taken them, I have done research, I've made changes, I've aligned my life more. I have learned more about health, about nutrition, about my body, about loving my body more. And oh, I feel emotional saying that. And that was my epiphany that, Susie, you might not feel great right now. But on the other side of this, there'll probably be another book, right? On the other side of this, there'll be a book. That's where my first book I'm holding up, if you are on the YouTube, Be Free, came from on the back of my journey of overcoming anxiety, low mood, overwhelm, depression, naturally, holistically. And that supported me until perimenopause, and then it supported me again. And yeah, and now it's going to support me again because we're away to go through it as a group in January. So if you want to know more about working through the book with me, I'll touch on that at the end as well. It's only £99 for 3 months of coaching with me, working through the book together as a community. So mega opportunity to receive help and support. And you might be thinking, well, that's a bit mental, given that you've currently got health anxiety and you're trying to like work through this together. But this is the thing. Everything in that book you need to maintain. And throughout life, there's been that parts of my life where I'm not maintaining that. We look at boundaries in there, and what's come up for me the past few weeks has just been where my boundaries have been compromised over and over and over. And working through that book will support me in not doing that. The mindset stuff, the nutrition, the crystals, the oils, the holistic stuff. My life it's been a craziest year of expansion for me, to go from like this time last year, my health was in such a different place. And my confidence has grown, my business has grown. I've written another book in this time. There's like so many incredible things. But as we're getting to the end of this year, when I've just, overgiven and compromised my own health, then the universe is like giving me this mega wake up call to just sort things out. Um, so yeah, anyway, let's get on to the good stuff about how to support ourselves in overcoming that. So when it comes to anxiety and mindfulness and any kind of meditations in and around anxiety, the first thing we really need to do is just to name it, like this is anxiety. This is anxiety. It's not going to kill me. This is anxiety. Or I am experiencing anxiety. We don't want to kind of attach to the like I am anxious or whatever. It's like I am experiencing this. Like you're experiencing it, it is not you. It could be I'm noticing anxious thoughts about my health. Um, Rather than, oh my God, something's wrong with me, da 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 da. So we need to begin to try and create that distance, which is called unhooking, um, where we can begin to recognize, okay, I'm having the thought, I'm having the desire that I want to go and Google this. I'm having the desire that maybe I start researching another doctor. I'm having you know, having the thought that rather than just going straight to it. So, last night I experienced something which I don't know if it was a panic attack. I don't really know. It's not like a panic attack like I've ever had before. But I experienced something in the middle of the night last night and I was so filled with fear. Um, and health anxiety or anxiety lives within our body, but actually the easiest way to bring ourselves back into the present moment is by connecting with our body. So I was doing a lot of breathing practices. So we could do like nice deep belly breathing, breathing in for four, pausing for four, exhaling for four, pausing for four. So you could be doing that box breathing. I use something called counting breath, where I'm literally counting my breath. And one of my beautiful students, she said the other day, she went, "Oh, it's kind of like counting sheep." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is." That's what I was thinking about last night. Breathing in, counting one, exhale, count one, breathe in, count two, exhale, count two. And you do that. Well, I did it all the way up to 20 and then did it again. Now, you're not breathing in for that duration. It's not like 1 second out for 1 second. You're just counting the breath. So it doesn't matter what length your breath is, you're just counting it. So that really supported me. I listened to multiple meditations last night, and all of them were, in fact, I'll pop them in the show notes. They were body-based meditations, so a body scan, which you might think, like, I don't want to bring any more attention to my body when I'm experiencing health anxiety, but actually it's massively powerful because what you recognize is, maybe, so I was having a sensation in my chest and by bringing my awareness to, for example, the top of my head and then my eyes and then my jaw and or my feet, actually removed the thought attachment to the sensation in my chest and it took me to my feet. And I was just working on building relaxation throughout my whole body. And actually that process allowed me to fall back asleep, which was really, really, really helpful. So things like a progressive muscle release, I've got that in my book. My second book, there's a script for that. I have body scan meditation on YouTube and on Insight Timer that you can listen to. Um, a yoga nidra, like that's one of my most listened to meditations on Insight Timer is my yoga nidra meditation. I'm gonna um make a note to add that to the show notes. So add the yoga nidra meditation, add the body scan, and add the two that I used last night. So they can hopefully support you. Other things like mindful movement, so things that are going to allow you to stretch, to release, to let go, things just like going for a nice walk, being really mindful in nature. Um, yeah, yoga, qigong, tai chi. Um, I also find it quite good lying on my Shakti mat. That's really, really helpful for me. But all of these things are just signaling to our nervous system that we're quieting that stress response. So just now, I've got like herbal teas, I'm on my chamomile teas. I am using my essential oils to support me to just really ground my body and being. Um, Yeah, okay. So the next thing I've said is you kind of want to limit reassurance seeking and Google searches. So every time you check, you might feel like a little bit better, but it's just kind of strengthening that neural pathway, that anxiety neural pathway. So maybe we just kind of what I used to do and still have at the side of my bed is a little success journal. So at the end of the day, before going to bed, I would write all the things that were great about that day, that maybe you've overcome. So we're not focusing on the anxiety, but we're focusing on the strength within ourselves. So for me today, that'll be, I went for a beach walk in the morning. I went for a woodland walk after work, she says, back at work, but like after work and stuff. But yeah, having that can be really, really helpful because we're wanting to foster those good things. Gratitude is a massively powerful support tool as well. So having a gratitude journal, I write my gratitudes in the morning, but I think because I had that issue last night, I'm going to do some gratitude at bedtime tonight just to put me into that frame of mind. Be really conscious about what you're consuming. So you're not going to want anything that is going to get your heart rate up too much, your adrenaline. You might think like, oh, this is just an insignificant show and it doesn't really matter. But actually, you really want to consciously support your nervous system. Um, yeah, one of the other tools that I use with coaching clients in the past are, is this anxiety or fear or whatever, or is this fact? Right? So just checking in with yourself, like, is this anxiety or fear, or is this an actual fact? Right? So check in with that. Are there any other possible explanations for your symptoms? So I was just chatting with my sister-in-law earlier, and you don't get long to chat with your doctor, obviously. And I was like saying to her, like, oh, maybe it's because of this. And she was like, yeah, it probably is because of that. But like there's other could there be other explanations for things? Have you experienced it before? Um, that's something to consider. Like, have you experienced this before? Um, I know like what I'm experiencing now, I experienced 4 years ago as well. Like before I started HRT, when I'm like, oh, maybe it's that, maybe it's hormone related, doing all the questioning. So as I say, like right now, I am in it with you. Um, Mindfulness, really, really helpful. Just observing. I did actually, I was reading a book earlier and I kept looked out because I thought I was going to share something with you here. Probably not going to be able to find it now. It's from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, The Art of Communication. Um, and it was about loving yourself and compassion. Um, Coming home to ourselves to understand our suffering and its roots is the first step. Once we understand our suffering and how it came about, we're in a position to communicate with others in such a way that they also suffer less. When you can truly come home to yourself and listen to yourself, you can profit from every moment given you to live. Sorry. You can enjoy every moment. With good internal communication facilitated by mindful breathing, you can begin to understand yourself, understand your suffering, and understand your happiness. And then it goes on to speak about knowing how to handle your suffering. But, you know, being with it, and this is what I was saying when I was sitting at my altar and just this urge to surrender, just being with the breath, knowing, allowing stuff to be there rather than fighting it can be massively powerful. But what I would say is to really build that compassion for yourself, for your body. We can feel a lot of shame. I was kind of like thinking earlier, oh my God, back in the day, I would have been called a hypochondriac. But then I'm like, actually, you're having these sensations and some of the stuff is real. So you're not a hypochondriac. But we can have shame and we tell our stories, what will people think about me? Will people think less of me? I said to my husband, my gosh, thank you so much for being there. Like, I worry about, yeah, him and, his witnessing what I'm experiencing and me worrying about him experiencing my suffering, and we can get stuck in this cycle. So compassion and self-love are so important if you are experiencing anxiety. And just that coming home to yourself and just telling yourself and mothering yourself, I am safe in this moment. In this moment, I am safe. And using our voice in that way. My body is doing its best for me. I am happy, healthy, and whole. I am healing. I am strong. Using affirmations, using support, um, really, really helpful. So remove the judgment. It's all kind of like the key main things of meditation and mindfulness, right? Surrender, removal of judgment, acceptance, self-love, compassion, all of these things will support us. But sometimes we just need that reminder. Therapeutic support, so things like, um, you know, having a counselor, CBT therapist, using tools like EMDR, EFT tapping. I use EFT tapping a lot. I just use YouTube and, find somebody that can support me in that way. Um, but I want you to remember that your body is not your enemy and um, it's trying to communicate with you. Maybe you've taken on too much at work. Maybe family stuff is too much of a pressure right now. Um, Maybe your hormones need checked, like mine, or, you know, like just tuning in and remember that all of these are messengers. It's not there to harm us, and that anxiety can be our greatest friend. It's there telling us, sometimes screaming at us, something needs to change. Something needs to change. You need more love, you need more space, you need more compassion. Um, yeah. So that is my take on health anxiety. I'm just going to flick through my book that I had when I was making notes to see if there's anything there that I want to share. Um, yeah, just kind of doing things for yourself, constantly kind of like getting support so that you feel safe, but equally giving yourself a little bit of challenge as well, can be really, really helpful if you're kind of like, yeah, diverting your mind onto something else. So it's not kind of, we're not ignoring what's happening, but actually, is there a positive book that you could be reading or, um, yeah, chatting to something else, listening to something else, rather than getting so consumed in our own thoughts. Um, So yeah, we need to just meet this situation with curiosity, create space for healing to occur. Um, if this episode resonated with you, obviously you will have links in the show notes to support you. Um, I would encourage you to join us on this journey. Join us on the Be Free Book Club journey. We start mid-January. You get calls with me every second week. We go through the book together. We do it every second week so we can implement the actions from the book. We share, we cheer each other on. It is a beautiful, compassionate, loving space for you. I will be guiding you through beautiful practices to help soothe your nervous system. So if you want to start 2026 off in that way, please, 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 do join us. And in fact, just thinking about this on the spot, I'm going to offer a 10% podcast discount for anybody who wants to sign up to the pay in full option. So if you use the code podcast, all lowercase, I'm just making this note for myself because I'll have to go and set up the code. Podcast, all lowercase. You will get 10% off joining me in the Be Free Book Club in January and everybody else that's going through it. There's two call times. There's a daytime call time and an evening call time. So that way we can meet different countries. And if you're like at home during the day, you can join us during the day, or if you live abroad or anything like that. The calls will be the same calls, but they'll be held. There's two. I can't remember what day of the week they are, but you can go and check out the link below. And yeah, and if you don't have access to show notes, you can just simply go to my website, www.spiritandsoul.me, go to my services, and you'll find the book club page there. It's got all the call times, dates, everything that we're covering. It really is such an amazing opportunity and reminder for us of how important our health is and how many holistic tools we can use to support ourselves. Um, so yeah, that's the other thing I would say. Massage, Reiki, reflexology, all these things can really support you as well. And just releasing some of that stress response and allowing yourself to be held. Okay. I love you guys so much. I deeply appreciate you. If you're listening to this episode, thank you for being here. I have two incredible guests lined up actually. So they're going to be quite fun, interesting, inspiring conversations. So do stick around, but please, yeah, like, subscribe, share this with anybody you feel might benefit. And as I say, check out all those links in the show notes because they are there to support you as well. Thank you with my whole heart and soul. Know you are safe, you are loved, and you are supported. And I'll see you all soon.